Do it again. City Council Committee on Ordinance License Legal Affairs Co-Postal Committee of the Whole to met in council chambers on Thursday, October 23rd, 2019 at 6 p.m. for the purposes of the matter discussing the matters listed below. Notice of the meeting was posted on October 2nd, 2019 at 2:15 p.m. Absent being members of the committee currently is Councilor Sargent. Not being members of the committee present is Councilor Fury, Councilor Dibble, and Councilor Peterson. Also with us this evening, we have Tom and Amanda from the Planning Department, and the mayor's joined us as well. We have three matters in front of us. The first matter is Council Order Number 370, amending the zoning ordinance relative to Section 3.2.8, accessory living dwelling units. This was a matter that was referred back to the committee after first passage at our last meeting. Since then, everyone has in front of them multiple pages. And I know that Councilor Dibble has sat down with Tom and Amanda, and I believe Tom St. Pierre at one point, and hammered through some of his concerns. So Amanda, if you would, if you could bring us through the edits. I mean, I guess we should probably start with planning board recommendations first. The matter of the ordinance that we have in front of us after the first passage is the one, this one right here, the one that's written, how the ordinance looked after 10/10/19 meeting, how it exists now, which was the original ordinance with the change that we made relative to ownership. That was the one edit that we made during the council meeting. That's reflected in this document. But now we're going to go back and look at what some of the planning board recommendations were, and then obviously we can open up the discussion relative to some of the concerns that Councilor Dibble had when he sat down with Amanda. I know that there's one edit in here relative to the language from the city solicitor as well. So with that, why don't we open it up to Amanda or Tom or the mayor, whoever wants to take the ball first in order to, relative to the matter, the one that we have that says copy of the planning board recommendations.
Yeah, if I make a recommendation, I'd have to have Amanda go through it. I actually believe we went through the planning board recommendations at the meeting. We just didn't incorporate that into when you said voting on really add the one amendment. So if anybody has questions on the planning board recommendations, we can review those, but we did sort of already go through them with the group. I think it might make more sense to go through the memo dated October 21st. That originated out of the meeting with Councilor Dibble, Councilor Dominguez, and planning staff and building inspector. And maybe just review those issues, because unless somebody has concerns about the planning board recommendations, because I think we went through that, it was more just a technical to get incorporated into your vote. Does that make sense?
Whichever way gets us to the point where whatever we vote out of committee back has all the reflected changes.
Sure.
We'll go left, right, zigzag, weave, whichever way it takes. So with that, Amanda, that's great. So just for everyone's clarity, the clerk has done everyone have the writing on them that says Amanda's edits up through 10/21/19. Referenced is to number 370. Yep. Arthur has it. This one.
But it doesn't say
Mine does in the top left corner. It says Amanda's edits. This one. This one.
Yeah, it doesn't say.
Yep, it doesn't say it on yours, it says it on mine. Yep, that's the one. The one that starts the City of Salem, an ordinance to amend an ordinance relative to accessory living uses. That's the way it starts.
Second page,
Yep, strike-through version. Let the record reflect that Councilor Sargent has joined us. So we just started, Councilor. So Amanda, if you would, we're going to go through this document. So the first page is nothing.
Okay, I think it'll be helpful to walk you through with the letter I sent on Monday, October 21st, because it explains each one of these changes. think it does it in order as well. So the first change you'll see in your ordinance is from input from the city solicitor regarding owner occupancy. This was the change that you made at the last meeting. What the city council had voted on was to include at least one owner of the residence in which the accessory living area is created shall reside in one of the dwelling units as a principal place of residence, and it's that second sentence that folks had questions about, and that's for the purpose of the section, the owner shall be one or more individuals residing in a dwelling who hold title and for whom the dwelling is the primary residence for voting and tax purposes. That sentence was just added on to try to make sure that it's the actual owner of the property. It wasn't somebody who owns multiple properties. And I lifted that language from, there are about 10 other municipalities in the Commonwealth who have similar language that base it on voting and tax purposes, but based on the comments that came to light, we certainly don't want to preclude people. So the city solicitor came up with some new language. And that's to that second sentence. It's now the underlined text. It says, who holds title, this is again defining owner, shall be one or more individual who holds title to the property and for whom the dwelling is the primary residence, as evidenced by voter registration, tax return, or other documentation demonstrating primary residence. So it's just saying you can supply one of those types of documents. If you don't have that, you need to provide some type of other document, but just show that you have this home as your primary residence. So that was the first change, and that's 4E.
And that was what came out of our last meeting, but we asked the city solicitor to address some wording on that.
Right, so the city solicitor had changed it to just tighten that up. It's difficult to see the change in there, but instead of saying who hold title and for whom the dwelling is the primary residence for voting and tax purposes, instead it says as evidenced by voter registration, tax return, or other demonstrating
Okay.
primary residence. So it's just cleaning that language. The next part of my letter is input from the zoning enforcement officer. As you had mentioned, Tom, Daniel, myself had met, and Tom St. Pierre had met with Councilor Dibble and Councilor Dominguez on October 16th. And at that meeting, Tom St. Pierre had noted he had concerns about the dimensional standards, if specifically for an accessory structure on a residence that does not meet the dimensional standards. For example, a garage that doesn't meet the setback requirements. How could an accessory unit go in there? And ultimately it was determined that what was recommended that if an accessory unit is going to go into a structure that does not meet the dimensional standards, accessory structure that does not meet the dimensional standards, it would require a special permit. And there's no waiver from that. So if you want to put it in an accessory structure, it doesn't meet the dimensional standards, we added section 5 here, so I guess we do need to flip around a little bit. And that's where you'll see special permit. A special permit shall be required to use an existing accessory structure that does not comply with section 4.1 as an accessory living area.
So that's in 5.
That's in.
Before we skip to finish 5, can we finish 4 first, and then we can take some votes on 4?
Yeah, let's go.
Because I see the language was changed in E, and I'm assuming since you changed E, you've added F and G?
Yes. Yeah, okay, I'll go through it in this order.
Yep.
Councilor Dibble had recommended that accessory units not be allowed in structures with more than 5 units. And so the language was added, the primary use shall not exceed 5 units. So it's just putting a cap on buildings that can allow it. G was added, Councilor Dibble had recommended that there be a minimum square footage. So section, let me go through. So there are health codes that dictate minimum square footage, and we built this language off of that. According to the sanitary code, every dwelling unit shall contain at least 150 square feet of space, and that's of habitable space. And then for each additional occupant, you need an additional 100 square feet. Habitable space means for cooking purposes, for bedroom purposes. It does not include a bathroom. And so for 3 people, it would be 350 square feet. Start with the 150 and add 100 for each person. So that's just a starting point for the committee and the city council to discuss to see if that's an appropriate minimum. But again, we were building it off the sanitary code. The next one, Councilor DeVille recommended that egress stairs not be permitted on the primary facade, and that's why K was added. In section R, you see short-term rentals. We added language there. If you recall, in my letter back on July 31st, in section 2.3, I addressed, this was a question that could be a home be used as a short-term rental. And back in July, I said, well, under no circumstance could an accessory unit be a short-term rental under this ordinance. A homeowner could use the principal residence as a short-term rental if that owner were to live in the accessory unit. The short-term rental ordinance gives the owner the right to rent their home, and so staff had recommended not taking that right away. However, Councilor DeBuller recommended that the primary residence not be allowed to be a short-term rental. So we added language in that says, that would essentially not allow the primary residence to be a short-term rental either. That's K. That's R.
Okay.
That's a lot.
I'm just going to stop you right there, just so we can try to attack this one by one.
Okay.
Okay. So with regards to the language as amended in section E, do I have a motion by anyone? This is the language coming back from the city solicitor that we asked her for. Specifically, just right now, we're talking about letter E. Someone make a motion on that? No, the section E is, yeah, that's the correct. The red, the language that's in red. Council Dibble not being a member of the committee.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify over the whole document, in reading this thing for 100 times or so, we were talking about ADUs originally, accessory dwelling units, and in this document we talked about it changing the name to accessory living units and accessory living areas. I don't know if there's a difference, but I think we should use one term for everything, and I thought it was going to be accessory dwelling units across the board, but is there a difference between a dwelling unit, a living unit, and a living area? Is my question. Who uses plan areas?
I can answer that. So this was really looking at what the original ordinance called it. It's been called an accessory living area in the original ordinance. And so throughout this ordinance, we've been calling it an accessory living area. The term is interchangeable. You can call it an accessory dwelling unit or an accessory living area, but since that's the way it was referred to in the current ordinance, we continue to use that term.
Yeah, we should just go through and make sure it's the same word for all of them. For example, Mr. Chair, on the same section, letter R, it says accessory living unit. And then in the same line, it says accessory living area. So we need to use the same term everywhere. So we're not creating any loopholes into it.
Sure, that would not create a loophole, but it's a simple change to make.
If we could, if someone could just make a motion that we change the language so it's consistent throughout the document. Councilor Dominguez moves that the language is, and to be honest with Amanda, I agree that it's apples and oranges. I mean, but let's make it all apples or all orange, one of the two. So just to make it consistent.
Chair.
Councilor Maduro.
Mr. Chair, so are we changing that to dwelling units or living areas?
I'll leave it up to the Tom, suggestion, living area, dwelling area, does it matter?
You've got living area in more places than others.
Why don't we make it living area? Councilor Dominguez, will you make that motion? Councilor Dominguez moves that the document reflect living area throughout, where it's referenced living area or accessory unit or however else it's referenced, so it could be living area. Do I have a second on that? Seconded by Councilor Maduro. All those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. So, hold on, on top of everything, I gotta write this, moves. Consistent throughout. Okay, now we'll go. Yes, Councilor Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not being a member of the committee, I just want to say that this one, section E, that was in response to a question I had, and I do think this solves it. So as the person who asked the question, I would be in favor of the motion to accept it.
Thank you. That recommendation came back from the city solicitor. We asked her for that recommendation, so if someone could move on section, letter E, relative to the new language that's in red. Somebody in the committee?
So move.
Council Madore moves to amend the language to reflect the strike-through version. Second by me. Council McCarthy seconds. Any further discussion on this particular item? All those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. We'll take them one at a time. F, the primary use shall not exceed 5 units. And this recommendation came from discussions that Councilor Dibble had with the staff, so I'm going to ask Councilor Dibble to explain himself. Councilor Dibble.
Thank you, Chair. I thought that there was a need to have a limit to the number of units. I did not recommend 5 in particular. I asked for the plan's recommendation, and we're seeing 5 in the document.
And you felt the need to recommend for a limit on units because based on,
Well, should
I'm just curious.
so we have clarity. So should a 30-unit apartment building be allowed to put one more unit on, or should anybody be allowed to put one more unit on? Is the question. So that was the question I posed, and I thought we should get limits so we have clarity.
Okay.
On it. It seems like the 5-unit is what the city's planning department has recommended for other things in the past few years. And it seems to be what the planning board has a line to stand for on many different issues. But I'll let the planners address why 5. I didn't recommend 5.
Tom?
So Amanda, I think, had to leave the meeting before we got to that point. I think it was something that in the discussion, Tom St. Pierre, in the meeting, we said 5 sounded good, and that was the extent of it.
Okay.
Yep.
Any further discussion on section 4-F? The primary use shall not exceed 5 units. Any further discussion? Seeing none, do I have a recommendation? Council Madore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I wonder if the language primary use, is that clear enough in reference to residential use? Or the primary,
That's how it's referred to throughout the document as the primary use, but
You certainly have the primary and the accessory use shall not exceed a total of 5 units, which means you can have a 4-unit building that you add an accessory to, that you would have more than 5 units.
and we've called it primary resident. Now I'm looking through this, it looks like primary resident, so if you want to make it all apples to apples, change it to primary residence. But that doesn't really work.
No, it doesn't work in that case.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't fit into the context of that bullet. The primary use shall not exceed 5 units in total.
There you go.
Yeah.
Council Dibble.
Thank you, Chair. Just wondering, would that be inclusive of the accessory dwelling unit or not?
Well, consider it's a unit, then I would say yes. In total. So that means you could have a 4-unit building and add 1, or you could have a 3-unit building and potentially add 2.
I'm okay with either way you want to go, but I think if we're going to do that, I think we should say inclusive of the accessory dwelling unit, or whatever you want to call it, accessory living area.
Whatever motion you want to put on the floor, this strike-through came out of your discussions in the meeting, so.
Just so we have clarity, I think that we should specify that it's inclusive or it doesn't include, whatever, whichever way the little law is. I can't make a motion.
The primary use shall not exceed 5 units in total, including the accessory use unit. how are we referring to that unit? Accessory living area?
Primary use.
Right, but the accessory is, as Council Sargent just pointed out, the accessory use isn't a primary use anyway, so as long as we say in total, I think we cover ourselves, but I'll leave that to the will. Does that make sense? Council Marlowe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is the goal to limit the total number of units, including the accessory dwellings, to 5?
And so it'd be 5 in total.
5 in total, including the ADUs, okay. And that doesn't matter whether it's a one-family, 2, 3, 4, whatever, right? It starts at the single family on up, okay.
It's just so that you don't get into multi-unit buildings and then.
Right.
So once you have a multi-building that's more than 4 units, then you can't add an accessory use to that building. Because you'd
We
exceed
can
5.
add one, right?
Well, up to 4. Once you get to a 5-unit building or more,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be allowed to
Right.
put an ADU in.
Right, yeah.
That's the way I read it, or I read that recommendation.
That's how you want to read, yeah.
No, I don't, I'm just saying, I read the language and I'm trying to clear the language up.
Right, yeah, okay.
Councilman Madore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm just trying to understand, if we say inclusive of the accessory living area, then that means the accessory living area becomes a primary use? I think that's more confusing to add that language, saying
I agree.
primary use shall not exceed 5 units inclusive of the accessory. So if the accessory satisfies the 5-unit limit, then it becomes a primary use.
I don't think that's the intent we want. I think
Right.
it's just you don't want 5 in total. That's why I said, I just added simply in total.
So I wonder if it could, rather than say shall not exceed, you can change that to existing primary use shall not exceed 5 units. And that will eliminate the concern that it's too dense or whatever the concern is.
That means total will be 6 though.
Once an existing building has 5 units, you cannot add more accessory units. That's the intent, right? So it should say,
How about once again, this is coming from the conversations that Council Dibble had. I'm just reading it and I'm trying to reflect that to make it consistent. The ordinance shall not apply to buildings with more than 5 primary residences? I don't know, I'm grasping here. Trying to figure out what the intent is.
I actually agree with that, what you just said.
Council Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not being a member of the committee, I have a suggestion that was based off of what someone had just said. The combination of primary and accessory uses shall not exceed 5 units.
Tom?
Well, I was actually going, I think, Councilman Madore, and I lost it, what you said, but I think if the objective is that you have a 5-unit structure and there can be one accessory use, one accessory living area in that. I think the intent was that there's, like, you couldn't do it in add an accessory living area to something greater than a 5-unit building. It could be a 4-unit building, it could be a 6-unit building, and I think that I had my language, I should have written it down, so I apologize.
Mr. Chair.
That's what you just said.
An accessory living area shall not be allowed in a building of 5 units, or whatever the number of units is that
Okay.
Yeah.
you agree
There we
to.
go.
Mr. Chair, really quick.
Councilman Madore.
Through you to Councilor Peterson. So if we say what you suggested, which I also forgot, a combination of units, including primary and accessory, to not exceed 5. It would conflict with D, potentially conflict with D, where it says no more than one accessory living area shall be located upon a single lot. So if you're having 2 units, accessory units, then it would not be eligible. So anyway, I like Tom's suggestion.
So Tom, what was you suggesting? Buildings with more than 5 units shall be not included?
An accessory living area shall not be permitted in a building with
You pick the number of
blank
units.
units. With 5 or more units, or,
Okay,
yep. Okay,
someone needs to make that motion.
So moved.
Council Madore moves to change for F. Wow, we only have 4F. 4F to read. How are we referring to these accessory?
living area.
Thank you. Accessory living areas.
Shall not be permitted in a building with 5 or more units.
Seconded by Councilor Dominguez. Gotta go page 2. Councilor Dominguez seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? That one. So now we're up to G. The accessory living area shall not contain less than 350 square feet of habitable space, meaning that we don't want to create abnormally small areas. So that sets a minimum, and isn't someplace else referenced to maximum?
Yes.
So basically, we're going from 350 to, was it 800 or 850 or 9?
It's 1,000 is the upper limit, yeah.
I guess my question is, where does it reference 1,000? And can't we just put it in the same lines? The accessory units shall be between 350 to 1,000.
Under 4C, the accessory living area shall not contain an excess of 800 square feet of habitable space unless otherwise waived pursuant to Section 5. And then you're allowed to exceed the 800 up to
Okay.
1,000 with a
Alright.
special permit.
Okay, then we'll just add it. We'll just add it there, makes it easy, that's fine. I thought it'd be cleaner if that was referenced in one line, but
Oh, right.
if there's a way, there's no way to go below, but there's a way to go above, then you can't have them in the same bullet. That's the way I look at it. But the only suggestion would be when we go to send us the final version of this that we're gonna vote on, that G should probably move up under D. So wherever D, whatever references the, or under C.
C,
So it
okay.
should read C, then D.
Right.
So it's, someone reads C and says it should only be this, but then they know the next, says the next one's this, just for clarity in the structure. It's not, I mean, where it moves, I don't, just as long as as you're reading it, it makes more sense that way.
Understood.
Thank you. So relative for tonight's purposes, for right now, we're just we'll keep the bullets the way we're doing them, but then if you move it around, that's fine, just as long as we know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Could we just note one thing? In letter C in this section, the reference to Section 5 is actually Section 6 because we added a Section 5. So that'll be a correction.
Yep, so moved. If someone could do that, just on C. C, we're going to change it to section, C should read Section 6. Someone can make that motion. Council Madore, thank you.
So moved, and I have another motion, well, another
Okay.
comment. If we're going to move G to D, can we just combine into and say accessory living area shall not contain less than 300 square feet? and not in excess of 800 square feet of habitable space.
The only reason we didn't do that is because the first one, the upper limit, you can ask for a special permit to change it, so then I wouldn't want to group someone in and ask for, so then someone could read that and interpret, they might be able to get a special permit to go down. So if you leave it as two separate ones, then you're setting a baseline for 350. That's just my opinion.
Does it though?
I think if you combine it, it does. It allows the ability to get a special permit for less than.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
We good with that? So Councilman Madore moves that we change Section 5 to Section 6.
And that's in for A, B, and C, reference section 5. So for A, B, and C should be.
So moved that we just change wherever that reference is over to be consistent. Seconded by Council McCarthy. Any further discussion on just changing section 5 to 6 in the document relative to the fact that we added a section? No further discussion. All's in favor, all's opposed. So that's changed. Now let's go back to the added bullet G. Does anyone have any comments about that the accessory living area shall not contain less than 350 square feet of habitable space, as came out of discussions with Councilor Dibble, Councilor Dominguez, with the planning staff, and our building commissioner. Councilor Dibble?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to be clear, I didn't come up with the number 350, but I do like the approach and the work that the planning department put into this, in both the 350 minimum size and the research and methodology to come up with that number, using the health regulations, and also going the other way, going from 800 square feet, I think the planning department did a good job, and finding, putting a $1,000 to 1,000 square foot limit that we'll talk about on the next page as well. So their numbers were not part of my discussion, but the need to set the limits were part of the discussion. So I thank the planning department for their clarity on this. Good job doing research real fast.
So you don't have any issue with that number?
No.
Anyone else have an issue with that number? Seeing none, will someone make a motion relative to section 4G?
So moved.
Council Madore moves. To adopt section 4G, seconded by Councilor Dominguez. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor, all's opposed. That matter carries. Nothing in H, so the other, No, we'll let them move it. That's just flipping them around. We don't have to make a motion to flip them. Relative to the new add, which would be section K, egress stairs shall not be permitted on the primary facade. I'll go to Council Madore first, and then we'll go to Council Dibble. Council Madore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the primary facade might be ambiguous. Can we instead say the frontage, in some reference into the frontage rather than the primary facade? The street facing, basically.
The street facing facade? The facade.
I would recommend the frontage rather than street facing if you have a corner lot. There's a frontage defined there.
That's a good point.
So how would you
I would just
craft that?
Primary facade to on the frontage.
Okay.
So the recommendation would be egress stairs shall not be permitted on the frontage facade?
On the facade facing the frontage. Yeah, that sounds messy, but
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
That we use it on the facade facing frontage.
It's just a lot of Fs.
Yeah, it's a lot of house.
only because if the house, I mean, some houses are turned sideways to the street, so the front
Right.
door is actually, you have to walk up the walk and the front door's on the side. So if you wanted to put in a staircase, you might want to put it on the facade, which is actually closest to the street, because that will be the side of the building, even though it's visible from the street, and it's not an historic zone, so we could use all the historical language about, as long as you don't see it from the street, but it depends on the situation of the house, because if a house is situated in such a way, you're not gonna want, I mean, I could sit here and explain all the building aspects of why you wouldn't want to do it, but
Yeah.
the language in this one is, I'm not really 100% sure what it should be, so I'm gonna ask, because, I mean, if you're gonna put in a second egress, you gotta put it in someplace, and it's typically in the back or on the side, but so, shall not be incorporated into the main entrance of the building. I'm not really sure how it should read, but it's, depending upon how the building's situated on the lot, you could, if you specifically reference the street, you could put yourself in an issue where it wouldn't work. That's just my opinion. Councilman Madore.
So I think maybe this is a little too restrictive or excessive language, because a lot of the historical homes, they have very eccentric ways of orientation, so this might create some unintended consequences. So maybe through the special permit process, that's something the board could look into, to use common sense on where the egress should go if one is needed. This might be a little over-regulating.
I'll yield to Councilor Dibble. I think this came out of his discussions. I don't know sure if it was his specifically, but it came out of those discussions and that. So I don't know what the thought was on that one. Councilor Dibble?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The discussion was that some of these accessory dwellings will be in attic space or in the second or third floor homes. And a lot of the homes typically wouldn't have two staircases on the inside to get up to that floor. But the law says you need to have two means of egress. So it's doubtful that on some houses you can put a second staircase inside an existing house. So the staircase will go on the outside. I think we all understand that. And I remember seeing photographs, and there's a house on Mount History that has a staircase flowing down in front of the staircase where you can look of the house and look at the neighborhood. So I think that those stairs should go on the back side of the house, rather than coming down the front where it's in view, and taking away from the design of the neighborhood design of the house itself. Or the neighborhood, but you can still have to use it on the attic or the third floor. It's staircase can be done with that. So I'd recommend to your board, your committee, to have it, as the planner just mentioned, to have the stairs not on the street facing side. So if the house is on the corner, that's two sides. It can't go on either of those street sides. It has to go on the back two sides.
I know you can't make a recommendation, so what would be your suggestion relative to the language in this?
The planner just said it perfectly a second ago. You can rephrase that again. Or you said it. That was perfect.
Again, I wish I had a recording to know what I said, because we said what I wrote down was the facade facing the frontage, but it was one facade that we were picking, saying that rather than. But to Councilor Madore's and Councilor McCarthy's place, there's, if you're one of the houses where the facade facing the street is actually a side, then I think your concern that you expressed was, a stairway that's visible from the street. I think, though, there's houses where what's visible from the street is the side where you would put the staircase. It's not the primary facade, it's not the front entrance, but. Right. So I guess it's depending upon what the objective is that we're looking for to accomplish.
Right. Councilman Madore.
If the objective is to, thank you, Mr. Chair, if the objective is to protect architectural integrity and urban design, I think specifically in local historic districts, any of these construction would have to go through their review. And the planning board, I trust their judgment on where an egress should go. So to use a Chinese proverb, and I never do this, we shouldn't add feet to snake. So look up that story. I think
Okay.
this might be a little.
This is on TV. This is being
I
recorded
know,
too.
but I think this might be a little excessive and create unnecessary burden on the homeowner if they decide to put in an egress, because there's so many homes with these like weird primary facades, and how would you define a primary facade? It's really not up to us to do that at this point. I'm just concerned it'll create unintended consequences.
I guess I understand the concern. So is there a way to amend the special permit section where it says, what you touched on before we took a step back? It says a special permit shall be required to use an existing accessory structure that does not comply with section 4. As an accessory living area, and then make it 5 point, or whatever section it is, point B, in somehow reference the fact that if you have to put a second egress on your building, that you have to go through the permit process to do it, so that way, I don't know what, it's not an historic district, so it doesn't, technically you could put it wherever you want.
Right.
I mean, as long as it conforms to zoning. I mean, if you have the setback and if your house is set back far enough and you have it in the front, even though I wouldn't want to put one in the front, it might make sense to put it there because you're not looking for a variance in order to put a staircase in. And that also would affect on the sides too, so.
So at first I was thinking of attaching it to J, but that doesn't work. So what I would recommend if you want to have a special permit process for this is you have it as a requirement, as you mentioned, and then unless otherwise waived pursuant to section 6, and then add in a special permit to waive this and come up with criteria under which the zoning board would look at if they were going to waive it. So it could be that egress stairs shall not face a street. I think that's prohibitive, but if you wanted to go that far, you could say that, and then unless otherwise waived by section 6, and then we can work on it.
I mean, I understand what Council Dibble's trying to do, because he cited a specific example of a house that, in his opinion, doesn't look, but at the same sense, in certain cases, you only could put without going through the whole variance process to put a staircase in. If you're encroaching on a side or a rear or a front setback, then you're gonna have to go through a variance process anyway in order to put one in if the staircase is now falling into that setback. So, if you got plenty of room around your house, you can do it, you could probably tuck it away and make it the least visible, but in some instances, you may only have the ability to put it on the most visible side and do it legally. So I don't know how you address that. I know they're asking for an ask by applying for this, which is above and beyond, so there's some give and take there, so.
Egress stairs shall be it's not facing the frontage unless.
Yeah. But I still think that's vague. So egress stairs shall not face a street. Shall not be on a side that faces a street. That's up to
Well, yeah. So if you're on a corner, unless otherwise, I'm just thinking of, so I think in my mind, I'm drawing a distinction between, a historical commission oversight, which is anything that's visible from a public way, which I think is more than, for me, I think that that's a quite high threshold to have. And so
if it's visible from the street that it's addressed on, that's what I'm thinking.
Councilor Dibble and Councilor Madore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Amanda, our assistant planner, her wording of this. If the staircase simply shouldn't be built on the side of the house, as she just stated, that's facing the street. Put it on the back side, put it on the side, but not on the side of the house facing the street. She nailed it. Also, Mr. Chair, I had a meeting and you get to it, and I'd like to just control it for a second.
Yep.
The water occupied, wording is in here, I'm full, you just voted on full support of that wording. There's an issue that both the committees resolved is the 2 dwelling units, both the accessory and primary.
Where is that?
It's not spoken to. The 2 dwelling units on the same property in R1 zone is not allowed because the primary use of both of them is as residence. So this ordinance contradicts our bigger zoning ordinance. You can't do this in R1. So we crafted the wording that will allow us to have it, do this in R1. The parking space can be waived. We considered that was a discussion in our meeting, like the tech neighborhood of Derby Street or anywhere in the city where they was type the required parking space can be waived. That was not resolved yet.
Where is that?
It's in there somewhere.
So is there a strike-through version of it? I mean, I'm looking at the strike-through that came out of your meeting, and
Those are some of my concerns that they want to address in these changes. And the short-term rental one, I agree with that, so the word that you published tonight, that's the word.
Mr. Chair, if I may, before Councilor Dibble needs to leave. So regarding the first concern, I believe that is addressed through what we said. I'm looking at, is this your? No. The letter, there's the letter.
That was the distance between the buildings.
Yeah, but we talked about that for the use. So
Right.
under section 5, so we had an extensive discussion, I think, when we met as a small group, and then we had a follow-up discussion with the building inspector, and the issue, the accessory living area is an accessory use. It's not. So I think what is being raised is that we have 2 residential structures on the same single-family lot, and that's not what the building official is saying. Is that there is a primary residence and then there is an accessory structure, and the accessory structure has an allowed use through this ordinance. That allowed use is an accessory living area. So that's what the building official stated to us. And so therefore, it's not an issue from his perspective. Which I think was, in the meeting, I think he was trying to sort through it, and then after, that's how he landed. And so,
so you don't think it's an issue if someone has a detached garage and the garage conforms to zoning, it conforms to all the setbacks, and they put a unit above the garage, then that doesn't violate zoning because it's an accessory use to the primary use on the entire lot.
Correct.
correct. And regarding if it's a non-conforming garage,
Then it goes to special permit.
then we've got the special permit. But that's for the structure, it's not for the use.
Right. Okay. Councilor Dibble.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just clarify, the discussion took place using the example of a single-family zone property with a single-family house on it. And they happen to have a garage that was basically right on the property line, a set of garage, detached garage. So the applicant could take that garage and make it into an accessory living area, go up 2.5 stories, make the garage bigger. But they could do that. And both buildings, the primary use of both buildings would be for residential. And the Salem zoning ordinance does not allow that. That's one of the discussion.
I don't know what zoning book you look at, but as a builder, a detached structure, an auxiliary structure on a piece of property in R1 cannot exceed 18 feet in height. So you're talking.
You have a 1,000 square foot limit on it, and you need a variance because we're a special permit for a pre-existing non.
But they can't.
It would be adjacent to the property line, which doesn't meet setbacks.
You can't put up a 35-foot garage, a detached 35-foot garage. An auxiliary structure, an accessory structure on your property, a garage, is not intended to exceed 18 feet in height.
Right, Mr. Chair, but now this would not be a garage, it would be for a house.
But the example you cited, and I'm just trying to tell you what you're telling me, if the garage was detached on a property line, it would have to go through a special permit process. And then at the same time the maximum amount of square feet in the living area couldn't exceed 1,000 square feet. So, and has a minimum of 350. So you can't make another. You can't have two 35-foot structures on a single R1 piece of property. I don't care what it says. I'll tell you right now, you can't do it. Because everyone will be taking their garages and bopping them up.
But the point is, Mr. Chair, I think that this ordinance, it allows for that.
I disagree.
That's not correct. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say, that in talking with the zoning enforcement officer.
I'll if you could, Tom, get clarification from Tom St. Pierre, the zoning, I mean, I'm not, through my experience, I'm just gonna, in this community and other communities, when I go to build something, and I'm not gonna speak, I'm just gonna use my experience, it's gonna tell me that an accessory structure cannot exceed a certain height, and I believe the city of Salem is 18 feet. So, I mean, you could put 18 feet on and throw some dormers on it or whatever it is to get to you wherever, but 18 feet. So you can't you can't have a 35-foot tall garage next to a 35-foot tall house. It just doesn't, unless you attach them. And if the existing structure is non-conforming and you attach it to an existing structure that is conforming, then you make the entire structure now non-conforming, and then you have to go through a special permit process because you're attaching a non-conforming structure to an existing structure. So that's a whole other. We could play builders course 101 all day, but all I'm telling you is through our zoning, you cannot have two structures on your lot in R1 that are 35 feet tall. Period in a sentence. I don't care what this ordinance says. Mr. Council Dibble. But I speak that from my experience, but that would fall to the local authority and that would be the building inspector. I would reach out to Tom for his opinion on that.
I'd like to see our zoning experts, the building inspector, the zoning enforcement officer, and the zoning board of appeals comment. I know it's not helpful this one, but comment on and make changes to future zoning ordinances that come from the planning board or everybody else separately. But you redeem my thought here. The intent of my meeting with the building inspector and the city planner was to develop means to protect our neighborhoods, so that we wouldn't be creating loopholes. I think the developers would take advantage, or even single-family house, or the owner of a four-family house would take advantage of the intent of this because we didn't cross our T's and dot our I's. So I was trying to do our homework and make this a better document.
I'm not faulting you in the least.
And I'll thank you, Chair. I'll use an example of the Airbnb, the short-term rental ordinance that we pushed through fairly fast. That, not the last zoning board meeting, but the previous zoning board meeting, I think it was maybe a month ago, we had a developer with 6 or 8, I think it was 8, multi-family houses that he was trying to do Airbnbs, convert apartments that are needed in Salem to rentals, like a hotel almost, Airbnbs. 8 different properties.
I was at that meeting.
It was 6 or 8, I think maybe it was 9. It was a lot of units in all those houses. And that was the intent of what we passed here, because we talked about putting a 6-month or 1-year grandfathering on the ordinance, so that if anybody was renting these places out, had reservations, they could complete it, but at the end of that 1 year or so, they could no longer do it.
I know you weren't at the meeting, I was at the meeting, I don't want to belabor this, but the intent of the ordinance that we wrote did exactly what we wanted to do, and he applied for on the last day in order to bring these units in. So, that's...
The intent of what I was trying to do is get rid of the loopholes, so developers can't take advantage of our neighborhoods and change the character of Salem or change the character of the neighborhood.
So you happy with these changes?
Yes, but I think a little bit more has to go to the ones that I spoke about with the planner and the building inspector, and I've got a lot of 2 bigger ones to choose here tonight.
With the 2 bigger ones were...
Was the parking that can be waived and the, I'm sorry, we hammered this around, the 2 dwelling units, I don't think it's allowed.
I'll get a ruling from Tom, because Tom is the enforcement agent, so I'll get a ruling from
I just
Tom.
want to clarify, this is before the council tomorrow night to be voted on.
Yes.
Yep.
And then we run out of time, so
Okay.
I want to be sure it's prepared.
Yep.
For second passage.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go. I know the council double had to leave, so we are on... Yes.
Can we just go back to the primary facade issue again? If we say that it's...
That's where I was going.
Okay, thank you. Can I add a comment?
I want to keep them in order.
I want to add a comment. If we say that the egress, if I may, is facing the street, then that is even more ambiguous, because if you think about Federal Street, a lot of the backside of the homes have egresses, and they all face the street on Bridge Street. So, again, I think this is too excessive language. Adding feet to the snake.
So relative to the new item, I should have brought my glasses tonight. K. Egress stairs shall not be permitted on the primary facade. Is any recommendation, strike that, add it, amend it?
Let's wait. No, for a special permit. Maybe that's.
I mean, I've heard all the debate back and forth, and I understand Councilman Doer's example of Federal Street. But Federal Street's in historic districts, it would fall into a whole other level of scrutiny anyway through the Historic Commission. So those properties are covered. So we're talking about structures of less than 5 units that are somewhere else located outside, not in an historic district. And do you want to see the stairs from the street? Of which, like I said, in some instances, that may be the best spot for them. I mean, so I think it should be through some sort of permit application, or that's just me. But, I mean, I understand the intent. I wouldn't want to put another set of stairs on going over the front entrance of my house to try to figure it out. But maybe just, anyway, is there a recommendation from the board, or to strike it, or to leave it? I'm not sold on it either way at this point. I understand what the intent is, but I don't know how you incorporate that in here without boxing yourself in. Councilor Peterson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that in my ward, there are a number of buildings that are facing sideways that are not in a historic district, and I think I hope that the committee will choose something that doesn't put an undue burden, because I think if you're talking about the street facing side and the front side, which I think maybe isn't as much on the table anymore, but if we included both, I think that kind of really creates a hardship for anybody who's trying to do that, who has a sideways facing house.
Could be, so.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Councilman Madore,
Move to strike K.
Councilor Madore moves to strike K. Egress stairs shall not be permitted in the primary facade.
Can I ask a question?
You can ask me, Councilor Dominguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, if we strike K, it's going to happen with some of the purpose of having the neighborhood keep it in shape. I mean, we need to have something to maintain the integrity of the neighborhoods. Maybe some neighborhood might be affected by having in front or having inside, so we need to have something in place that can alleviate, can help maintain the integrity of the neighborhood. So my question through you is to Councilor Board to what else can we put in place? You completely take it out or have something in place?
Councilor Madore.
Mr. Chair, I just wonder what we are exactly protecting neighborhoods from. What's the integrity we're protecting? And if it's architectural integrity, I completely understand that, but I can think of so many streets, for example, Chestnut and Warren, a lot of the homes who have front primary facades on Chestnut, there are lots of egresses in the back that face Warren Street, so this will completely eliminate their ability to build any units if they choose to. I think this creates burden on the homeowner that we can't even predict now. So if you're trying to protect the architectural integrity, I would suggest maybe we move that to section 5, or is it 5 or 6 now? Under section special permit, and add language that says if an addition of egress stairs is needed, then some kind of additional scrutiny has to fall under the special permit review.
Tom, without belaboring this, can we just add language maybe simple as its legal address? So if it's on street X, but it also backs up to street Y, then if its legal address is X, you don't want it on X, but since its backside's may face Y, because if you make it visible from a street, then you're limiting yourself. So, but if the secondary egress is not permitted on the street side of its actual address, meaning that if it's on a corner, and it's on this corner, and it's on the corner of Chestnut and another street, then if its legal address is Chestnut, it can't be on Chestnut, but it could be on the other one, because its legal address is Chestnut, assuming that you're always going to have the situation when the house could be turned sideways for some reason or other. And if it encroaches on a setback, then they're going to have to go for a variance anyway. That's just my opinion. I don't know how we incorporate that into a zoning. But there's a motion on the floor to strike, and we don't have a second, so,
a question is, sorry, I'm trying to frame this for discussion. So, what are the circumstances under which an egress stairway could be done without a special permit? So, one could say, if you need an exterior egress staircase, then you need a special permit. But then everything who needs an exterior, that may be overmuch. So I'm trying to frame the question So if the concern is about the visual impact, the architectural impact of the egress stairs, if we require a special permit for everything that needs egress stairs, then, there's a discussion about that and the solution can be vetted. So that's one level. Might we want to not require special permit for egress stairs in certain situations? And so perhaps that's if an egress stair is not visible from any, and I'm now in the historical commission sort of jurisdiction. If an egress stair is not visible from a public way, then a special permit is not required. But if it is, then a special permit is required. You have an additional suggestion? Amanda has a suggestion.
This isn't in the same direction
Okay.
that you were going, but egress access shall be located on the side or rear of the building or located so that visibility from public ways is minimized.
There you go. I like
That's
that.
not a special permit, that would be a determination from the building inspector.
Okay. I like that. I like that. We're gonna go with that.
Great.
So we're gonna go in, section 4.
E.
Okay.
Okay.
Councilman Dorr like that, so we're gonna go Councilman Dorr.
Move to add as stated by Amanda.
I second that.
Amanda, could you repeat that just so I can write it down real quick?
Yep, egress access shall be located on the side or rear of the building or located so that visibility from public ways is minimized.
I'm okay for it. So that,
So that visibility,
there you go. Shall be minimized, okay. So Councilman Madore moves to add the language from Amanda that reads egress access shall be located on the side or the rear of the building so that visibility shall be minimized. Seconded by Councilor Dominguez. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. Going through N, O, P, there was no recommendation, so the next recommendation is in R, is the addition of the language in red, and in a primary residence that has an accessory living area. Does that make sense? Did Council Dibble record, does this come out of discussion with Council Dibble?
correct.
And the building inspector was more comfortable with this language, or?
It was, I think,
It just tightens up the language on
it's
it?
just a policy question. I mean, back in July, I think the discussion had been that, that a resident wouldn't need to give up their rights to be able to have a short-term rental. But, Councilor Dibble raised that as a concern, so this is language that would take it away, which is fine. I mean,
Councilman Madore?
Move to add.
Councilman Madore? Moves to add language in section 4R. Do I have a second? Seconded by Council Dominguez. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor, all's opposed? All right, we went through section 4, Yahoo! Oh, no, there's one more.
No.
Oh, that's it, there's no changes there. Okay, now we're in the, what Amanda alluded to earlier, the special permit, under section 5, and that would be to accessory structures, I'll use an example, detached garage, on a piece of property that is non-conforming, in order to add the accessory unit, you have to go through the special permit process.
Correct.
That's what this section refers to?
Correct.
Okey-doke. Councilman Madore?
Move to add.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Councilman Madore moves to add section 5 relative to special permit, seconded by Councilor Dominguez, or do you have a question? Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, all those opposed? Now we're into waivers. So I see in red under section C, well, let's go through the rest of them. Is any, this is where Councilor Dibble was talking about parking in section, and waivers under section A, subsection A, I guess? The availability of surplus off-street parking in the vicinity of the use being served? Is that what he's referencing?
Section 6 is in red where it says waivers. That was just before it was special permit, and then
Okay.
explained all that language. I separated that out, so the special permit is specifically for not complying with the dimensional table, and then call the next section waivers, because that's what it is. You need a special permit. It explains that to get a waiver.
Okay.
But no change was made to the criteria, to the criteria of A or B.
Okay. In C, we're only looking to up to a maximum of 1,000 square feet in case someone has a unit that, the way the house carves out, 1,000, they may exceed the 800 square feet.
Right. And
Yep. Okay.
yeah, and to exceed 800 square feet, you need a special permit, and it's just based on the peculiarities of the primary dwelling. I have such a hard time.
Okay.
We've been working on this a long time, and so
With the unique, with the
peculiarities is one of
uniqueness.
those words that
I get you.
just trips us up, so.
I let it go. I let it go.
Can't say that.
You're going with it. So the only change that, I mean, we've created the special permit section now under that we have waivers. And then the only change to it is in section C to a maximum of 1,000 square feet in case someone has when they divide up their house, it could be that the unit ends up being more than the 800 square feet, which is allowed.
Right.
Okay. So, anyone have any comments, discussion, adoption of the amended language? Specifically in section, what is the, under special permit where it says 5, what is it other, 5 dash what? 5-6 or 5.6 or?
No, it's,
That's
it's number
6.0.
6, it's 5 is special permit, and then 6 is a separate.
Gotcha.
Yep.
It's in blue, so I couldn't read it. I see that. Councilman Madore.
I'll move to add.
We move to add. Oh yeah, look at that, I can read it. Councilman Madore moves in section move to add the language in section 6, under 6C. Which is specifically up to a maximum of 1,000 square feet. Do I have a second? Councilor Dominguez seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, all those opposed? Carries. So,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
could I, although Councilor Dibble isn't here, this is the section where the parking concern that he raised.
Okay, specifically in what part? Is that under AA?
It's the, yeah, that it's more that the waiver of parking that was his concern if there's not adequate space. And as I understood it, and I don't want to represent that I am articulating this exactly his intent, but that if the zoning board granted through the special permit process, granted an accessory living unit or accessory living area without parking, that because the facts presented themselves and the board heard it and it was public testimony and the board concluded that it was not detrimental or increasing the, what is our language on making the parking negative?
Yeah. It's not making it worse.
Not making it worse, essentially. I think a concern he had was, well, that's maybe works for that tenant of that accessory living area, but what happens in the future? And what we were communicating is that through the zoning board process in a special permit, there's a decision that has conditions. And so those conditions could be, would be the place where things that needed to endure could be written, and then that is recorded, that decision is recorded, and that's how things endure. I'm not sure if anyone present can speak to the concerns that was at the meeting more differently from that, but I think from our perspective and in discussions with the building inspector is that the ZBA decision is the space or the mechanism to have conditions that endure. And in the future, if someone wanted to do something that didn't comply with those conditions, they'd have to come back for the ZBA. It's also understood that these things don't always get enforced because it's incumbent upon people to know about these conditions as time goes on. But if there's not a problem, then there's not a problem. But Mr. St. Pierre did comment that when there's an issue, then someone raises that, and then they can enforce and look if a modification needs to be made. So I'm not certain how to address the concerns as I understand them differently from the process that we use today for any special permit before the ZBA.
Councilor Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would think that since we built in provisions to make sure it was always owner occupied, that whatever was agreed upon when it first came to be, there shouldn't be confusion. Even if the tenant in the accessory living area changed, the owner would be the same. So that agreement shouldn't get lost in the shuffle.
I guess my only question would be is, when you talk about availability and stuff, I look at specific areas around the city that are subject to resident sticker parking. So if someone's asking to waive their on-site parking requirement, that means they're asking to put them on the street. And any ward council that represents any ward, any section of the city, we all know that the resident parking program is overextended as we hand out more passes and guest passes than there are available spots on the street, so I don't know how, I don't know, I can't even, I understand the special permit process and the whole, people would have to come out and speak against that, but to put them in an overdensed areas to begin with, without, allowing them to do it, I would hope that they would try to create the spot on site. That's just me.
Yeah, and I think that the process, so if they're not able to provide the parking on site, then they need to come through the special permit process, and they need to be able to demonstrate that they're not making the parking situation worse. I think that in some neighborhoods that's challenging to demonstrate that they're not making it worse.
Okay.
But there may be.
So the waiver goes through a special permit process?
Sorry?
And any waiver to waive the parking requirement will go through a special permit process?
Yep.
Right. With neighbor notification, zoning board of appeals meetings.
Okay. Councilman Go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to point out that in some communities where accessory dwelling areas are allowed by right, they have maybe permitted at most 5 over 3 years. So we're not talking about hundreds of cars suddenly flooding our streets. So I don't know if we're being too cautious here.
I didn't propose a change, it was just an example.
Yeah, I think it's fine as is.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Council Milo.
Mr. Chair, I move to refer this out as amended with no recommendation.
Oh, may I? I'm sorry.
Tom.
I think that you still have the planning board initial recommendations to actually incorporate.
Those on in here?
That was,
Okay, on top of what we just went through and all this, what were the planning board recommendations?
Do you want me to go through them one by one?
Yeah, are they on top of this? They gonna change this?
They are included in this document, but not in track changes. So you can follow along in the document you have.
Okay, the document that we just went through.
It has all the planning board changes in it, but they were not in track changes.
They weren't in the track changes. So the document that we voted on the other day for first passage had them already included in it. Okay. So we don't have to go over.
But I believe that, so at the council meeting, we went through the planning board recommendations.
Okay.
The amendment to the ordinance was regarding odor occupancy. I don't believe the council adopted the other recommendations.
So what you're asking for is that even the document that we just went through with the strike-through changes already reflects these changes, but you just want to make sure that they're actually incorporated into the document. So can someone make a motion that the planning board recommendations that are incorporated into the document?
So moved.
Because I guess we didn't do that procedural, it's a procedural
It's a
thing.
procedural thing, yep, as I understand it.
So Councilman Madua moves to adopt the planning board recommendations that are already incorporated in the document. Seconded by Council McCarthy. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, all those opposed? So we've done our due diligence and incorporated their recommendations that we've already been talking about. We went through the strike-through version, and there's Amanda's letter, so we're all set with that. So now we have an amended document in front of us relative to Council Order 370. Councilor Milo moved to recommend refer out of committee with no recommendation as amended. Is that correct, Councilor?
Yeah, there's no recommendation. Second.
It's a separate order. Yeah.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Council Milo's motion to refer out as amended, seconded by Council Madore. All those in favor? All those opposed? With no recommendation, moves out as amended. With no... Bless you. Seconded by Council Madore. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. Page 4. The next matter in front of us is the table, which is Council Order number 371. Is the table going to change any, or has it been consistent throughout?
It has been consistent. I do want to note, Councilor Dibble had a question. He asked why he wanted the NRCC has a dash. He asked to make it a yes or a no. The NRCC is not in the use table. We put it in here to make it clear that we're not adding or not allowing accessory uses in the NRCC, but I just wanted to make that clear. So the NRCC just has a dash because it is not in the use table.
So in the zoning ordinance, there's a table of uses for all the zoning districts except for NRCC.
Because they have their own special one?
They do. And
Right.
and it's actually not a use table, it's a list of uses in its section. So we're not, that's why there's a dash there. So we're just trying to make that, communicate that back to the council. That's why the dash is there. So no change is needed.
So other than this table that's been sitting in front of us for months still reflects everything we just amended?
Correct.
So this will be correct with that. Any further discussion for a motion?
I'll move to refer this to the full council with no recommendation.
Council Madore moves that. 371. Do I have a second? Second by Council McCarthy. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, all those opposed, matter is referred out with no recommendation. The last matter in front of us is 372, which is an ordinance amendment ordinance relative to short-term rentals. And I believe if we pass those two for second passage, then we have to go first passage so that this will replace sections of this. Is that correct?
Yes.
So this is why this has been sitting in committee. We haven't acted on it, is because we have to act on these two first before we act on this. Is that correct?
Correct.
So the recommendation would be if 370 and 371 are passed for second passage, then we pass this so that these don't jive with each other. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Any further discussion? What's that?
Don't we touch that on the amended one that we just discussed before in 370 about the short-term rental? It was not included in this document before?
This is the short-term rental document that the original one we passed like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So in order to
Amend that one.
in order to have all this other stuff in here, we have to amend this to allow that.
Okay.
Is that correct? I don't want to misstate it.
So in the short-term rentals definition, there's a section in the short-term rentals, I don't have that in front of me, that states what type of units are not allowed to have short-term rentals. And so it would be adding an accessory living area to that list. So if accessory living area, the ordinance is not adopted, it's moot. You don't need to add it to the list. If the ordinance is adopted, in order to tie it back and make sure that they cannot become short-term rentals, it's in here too. It's checking it off in 2 locations, in the Code of Ordinances and in the zoning ordinance.
Does that make sense to everybody? Perfect. Have a motion?
So moved.
Councilor Dominguez moves that the matter be referred out. And if 370 and 371 are adopted for second passage, 372 be adopted for first, or be recommended for adoption for first. Does that make sense to everybody? Do I have a second? Seconded by Council Madore. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor? All's opposed? The matter carries. Council Milo. Council Milo moves to adjourn. All's in favor, all's opposed, we stand adjourned. Thank you.